Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, coming your way on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. It's actually, 8 o'clock now Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Wednesday night. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, getting you set for opening week. We are just about 8 days away, so move ahead 8 days. It's Thursday. It's August 30th, and we've got Power 5 college football. We also have a selection of FCS and group of 5 games coming up this weekend. Well, we've got a whole lot to talk about in addition to the games themselves. Of course, this is the day that the Urban Meyer situation is supposed to be resolved. This was supposed to be the day it was to be resolved based on how long the Board of Trustees has locked itself into the inner sanctuary there in Columbus on the campus of The Ohio State University. Who knows how long they'll be in negotiations with Urban Meyer and determining what the fate of the coach and the football program will be for 2018 and beyond. We enjoy seeing a number of people joining the live stream. Of course, if you have yet to see us here at Mark Rogers TV, we talk college football each and every day, and we do it up better than everyone else with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. Analysis from myself as well. And of course, we're focusing for the next, say, hour and a half to 2 hours, whatever it turns out to be, on Urban Meyer and the story out of Columbus. We had expected, based on the information leading into Wednesday, that this decision would come down somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern Time. That has not been the case. They are still locked up, and we have passed 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And it's like a long deliberation when you follow a court case and they think they're going to wrap it up at a particular time, and it turns out to be later that night, past midnight. The next morning, they have to come back. They're up all night deliberating. Who knows how long this is going to take? But we welcome you to Mark Rogers TV, and we thank you for your support and your viewership as we talk college football tonight. So in addition to the Urban Meyer story, there is so much going on around college football. Consider just a couple days ago, the preseason AP Top 25 was released. With all the previews and predictions I've released over the last several days, I have not had a chance to address that. A number of people have commented that they want me to run down the AP Top 25, and I would be ecstatic to do just that. The All-American team, according to the AP and a number of services released here in the past few days, we can take a look at the All-America teams, first, second, and third. A lot of news involving the Wisconsin football team, and particularly their best wide receivers going down and being suspended. We'll take a look at the Wisconsin situation at wide receiver. The USC quarterback battle will evidently, according to Clay Helton, go into this weekend when the Trojans go through another set of scrimmages where they can evaluate Sears and Fink and JT Daniels. All right. Also, we're talking Central Florida football, UCF, front and center here at the 9 o'clock hour when we bring in Jeff Sharon from the UCF Benaret. I'm going to have to ask Jeff. This is the first time we've had Jeff on the show, exactly what his publication and podcast is. So Jeff comes highly recommended by some of the viewers who wanted me to cover UCF, since we've not had a chance to really dig in on the 2018 team, following up, of course, the perfection of 2017 and the departure of Scott Frost and his staff. We did have an interview last month here at Mark Rogers TV with Mackenzie Milton from American Conference Media Days. A number of those interviews are still to be released. So American Conference Media Days, about 3 weeks ago, I released a number of interviews with coaches and players. And now, just since we're only a week away from the season, there are a number of key interviews I'd still would like you to get a look at, including Charlie Strong of South Florida, Luke Fickell of Cincinnati, and some other head coaches and players in the American Conference. All right, again, the Urban Meyer situation. I'm monitoring ESPN2. That's my guess in regards to coverage of the news conference, because the Little League World Series is on ESPN Live right now. And knowing what I know about the inner workings there, we have taped or server programming airing, and it's college football related on ESPN2. Therefore, they would dump out of this programming being taped programming and college football related, to go to the breaking news of Urban Meyer's fate and the decision of the Board of Trustees at The Ohio State University. Again, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. If you're on the go, you're on the run, you're running errands, you're doing chores around the house, you're working out, whatever you're doing, and would rather listen to the audio, if that's more convenient for you, then just go to your favorite audio platform, being Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, or Stitcher, and just search Mark Rogers TV. We also would like you to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. That helps us with the folks there at YouTube and the way they've set up the analytics. And many of you are very well aware of YouTube and the search engine function online, period, but specifically at YouTube. So comment, like, and subscribe. It helps us immensely, and we thank you for your support, of course. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. I will be checking out the live chat in just a second, after I remind you that in the description section of all the videos, you see some links there. Please grab one of those links if you do any shopping on Amazon. And again, that supports the channel. You can buy whatever you want. You don't need to buy the products that are inside the link. Just enter into Amazon using one of the links, and that helps us out here at Mark Rogers TV. Also, we have a weekly newsletter that will debut Monday, September 3rd. That is Labor Day. That will be following all the big weekend action, excluding the Florida State-Virginia Tech game, of course, on that Monday night. But it's going to be a weekly newsletter released every Monday that highlights my take, my perspective on college football for the past weekend, with facts and trends and stats and all sorts of information collected from over the weekend's games, a channel update, and more. So whatever the first iteration is of this newsletter, I always welcome your suggestions and comments to make anything we do much better. So it'll be the same approach with the newsletter. The first edition will be just that, the first edition. We can certainly build it out from there, but I definitely will deliver my take and my perspective on the previous weekend's play, a channel update to let you know what we have available at Mark Rogers TV and what we're planning to do here. And then in addition to that, for you college football geeks, nerds, stat nerds like myself, a number of stats and facts and information and trends that were collected over the weekend that I will provide for you that you will not be able to find in one place anywhere else. So again, we appreciate you jumping on board for the Wednesday night show here. I believe that going forward, starting with week 1 of the college football season, we will do a reset, and we will target specific times for our live streams each week. What I'm thinking right now is that, let's say starting on Sunday, that we need to get together about 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time, and obviously knock out a review of the weekend and all the big happenings, all the big games and the big plays and everything that happened in college football, 4 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. That may change, and I will give you an update if it does. Monday, we'll stay with our 6 o'clock time slot, 6 Eastern time on Monday. And, of course, analysis from myself. I'll be checking the live chat. We'll talk up college football. I'll take calls as well. And then in addition to that, we bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. Tuesday, I'm weighing my options on Tuesday. My Tuesday is really loaded up and bogged down with work, not work here, but the job. And I don't know if I'm going to do a late night on Tuesday. I may or may not. Wednesday and Thursday night, we will target 7 o'clock Eastern time. And I believe on Thursday, once the games get into play, I want you guys to be able to kick back and enjoy college football on Thursday night, regardless of the matchup. Sometimes they're decent matchups, decent Power 5 matchups. Sometimes they're more along the American Conference route. But regardless, there's usually 3 or 4 decent games on Thursday night. So I believe we'll do a post-game wrap-up after all the games are over, or at some reasonable time. If there's a West Coast game that's lingering till 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. We'll still get together around 11 or midnight at the conclusion of these 7 and 8 o'clock games on Thursday night. Friday, I'll most likely deliver a day live stream on Friday. On Saturday, I'm thinking let's do a pregame at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So I'm going to be shaking the cobwebs because of my sleep schedule. 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, not the best for me. So excuse the look. Saturday mornings, I think it's going to be our best deal to go live with you with predictions and analysis and previews of all the games on Saturday, 10 o'clock a.m., 10 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And then we'll be joining you for live analysis, instant analysis throughout the day on Saturday following the games. And so many times that's at 3 or 3:15 following the noon games. Then in the 7 o'clock hour following the 3:30 games. And then roughly at midnight following the 7 and 8 o'clock games. And then if I'm really feeling it, who knows, 2, 3 in the morning. And for you folks on the West Coast, it's still bright and early, like 10 o'clock local time to wrap up the Pac-12. We can't ignore the Pac-12. All right, let's go to the live chat. Again, we're waiting the verdict and the announcement concerning Urban Meyer's hearing today by the Board of Trustees at The Ohio State University. The announcement will apparently be made by the Ohio State president. And when they do come on the air, if we're still here, then we'll just flip things around and maybe give it a look from here. And obviously, you guys can watch at home. We'll take in the announcement and react. Steve Hellwagon of 247 Sports. That's Bucknuts, the 247 platform for Ohio State, and a senior Big Ten writer. You guys are probably familiar with him. He comes on our show all the time. Steve does a great job there at Bucknuts. I contacted him today. He said, absolutely, I will be on after the verdict. But of course, he's got his obligations to the site and will need to be, of course, gathering information, gathering interviews, and interpreting the decision and delivering that news for 247 Sports. When Steve got back to me, this was earlier in the day. I'm sure he assumed, as I did, that since the Board of Trustees was projecting that they would be done at 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern time, that by 7, 8, 9 o'clock, that he would be available for us. So let's not count on it. But Steve Hellwagon said that he would join us from 247 Sports. And again, at 9 o'clock, Jeff Sharon talking Central Florida, UCF at 9 o'clock Eastern time. All right. I am going to the live chat. And then we're going to take a look. Going to take a look at the AP Top 25 preseason. And there's quite a few discrepancies, even in the top 5, where you typically see the AP and the coaches poll lineup. But I think the Ohio State situation is playing into that more than anything, where the coaches were still good to put Ohio State at number 3. The AP sports writers felt maybe there's a consideration given to the distraction factor, even if Urban Meyer keeps his job, that Ohio State was knocked down behind Wisconsin in the AP poll at number 5. All right, let's see what you guys have. Got Navy on the line, been waiting all day long. Navy, if you did not make a statement about how long you had to wait for one of my live streams, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. That is a staple of my live streams, is Navy Thomas 8 letting me know how long he's having to wait for me to jump on and start the live stream. I'm not going to promise that this is going to come anytime soon, but I've said it many times. So you long time guys on here, you long-standing watchers and viewers and supporters of Mark Rogers TV have heard this before. The aim is to have the big setup at some point with the nice graphics and the music and the bells and whistles. So at least you'll know that I'm alive, that I've not forgotten my live stream, that we're coming up. We're just moments away. with a countdown clock. George is on the line. The Texas A&M story doesn't even bother anymore. I'm so calloused over everything else. I almost like that one. The Texas A&M story, not something that I'm getting into right now. I haven't even had a chance to look it up. I think you guys can appreciate some days. For example, today, I had worked late last night until midnight. I got home. I worked on some of the college football videos that you see where we're currently in the ACC delivering those previews and predictions. I got to bed. I got up, went straight back to work. I've been working since 9 o'clock this morning, and I really have been detached from college football. So I know that there is a Texas A&M story. Don't know much about it. I did see that the second of the two Wisconsin wide receivers is suspended, and I don't even know what for. Danny Davis suspended as well as Quintez Cephas. All right, country boy on the line believes Urban Meyer is safe. Ivor Whitehead. Down goes Meyer. I don't know what Meyer that is, though. It's Myers, Myers. Who would that be? I don't know who that is exactly. Buckeye State Sports. Anyone who calls him Myers shouldn't be allowed to speak. Big Va. Hey, Mark. Hey, Big Va. How you doing tonight? Welcome, everyone, to Mark Rogers TV. For you longtime supporters, I always appreciate you guys being here for me as we crank out college football content. As you have noticed and seen, I'm sure that we're making our way through the ACC. I've released Syracuse, Boston College, Wake, Louisville recently. I have recorded North Carolina State, Florida State, and Clemson. I'll release those tonight, and hopefully we can get this wrapped up. Not that I'm hurrying us off the air or I'm eager to get us past this, because I do want to talk AP Top 25. I do want to talk All-Americans, but I've got about 45 videos to go, and I wanted to get those done by Monday. That could be rough. And that could be rough on your notifications, too. William Lee, Uncle George, just got a new linebacker recruit. Congratulations. Navy Thomas 8, how damn long are we going to be stuck in this scandal bullshit? George, oh my God, praise the Lord. I love linebackers. Brian Green doesn't look good for Urban, expected a quick response. And so, Brian, you bring up a good point and a valid point, and one that's a logical conclusion, because they've been investigating this for what, more than 2 weeks? I'm not remembering my timeline. It's currently August 22nd. Whatever the time frame has been, they wanted to get it concluded within 2 to 3 weeks. So we're somewhere in that range. You would think that they would have their findings lined up. Sure, that there would be a process of reviewing everything, making sure everything's in order, making sure that whatever the decision, that the legalities are taken care of, and that, you know, they weren't just going to walk in and 3 minutes later sign some papers and make an announcement. But that's why it was reasonable to think between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time that they would be able to announce a decision. So on the surface, anytime this sort of thing happens, the thought process is, oh, they've got a lot of crap to weed through, number one. Number two, they are trying to finalize some type of an agreement. And if there's an agreement, it means there's a disagreement if there needs to be an agreement reached. So that would be Urban Meyer separated, terminated, and having to work out those details, or Urban Meyer suspended. We've got to work out those details as well. Dave Biddle of 247 Sports tweeted earlier today that the Board of Trustees, excuse me, did you hear that? That the Board of Trustees, that their recommendation was reinstate Urban Meyer immediately. The president basically said, no, we need to go with a suspension, and that is being negotiated right now with Urban Meyer, who does not believe, according to Dave Biddle, 247 Sports, that he did anything wrong to warrant a suspension. I think he believes he did something wrong, but enough to warrant a suspension. And I would, to a certain extent, have an issue with that conclusion as well. I believe most of us would like to see a clear-cut decision that shows just that, decisiveness. That's what a decision is. It shows that either you have vetted all the facts, discovered everything that you need to, and the determination is Urban Meyer really is a bad person who screwed up and tried to cover things up and didn't go through the proper channels and try to protect a coach who shouldn't have been protected. Therefore, he should be fired. Or Urban Meyer went through the proper protocol. He reported it. He had the face to face discussion with Zach Smith. He gathered those facts. He gathered that information. He took it to the authorities within the athletic department, which would be Gene Smith, who then went to the authorities. We do know that the incident was investigated. So somebody had to go there to the police with that information. And that Urban Meyer then released it to the proper authorities, did what he could, dismissed himself of it. And despite lying at Big Ten Media Days, fine. He lied to the media, big deal. He's reinstated. But something in the middle could be difficult to take. And it also could be a difficult situation if they're still thinking that maybe there is another mouthpiece out there. There's another voice, another incident, another this, another clue, another bit of shred of evidence that could come out 10 days after the decision that causes the decision to look like the wrong one. So they're going through everything you can imagine, or maybe we can't imagine how complex and how thorough this process is to make sure that the university is covering, yes, covering themselves. All right. What else do we have here? Jandre Urban not going anywhere. I don't believe so either. Navy Thomas 8. Rural Myers. Again, that's a bit closer to the spelling. That's good. There is no S on Meyer. Now, I would expect that from a Michigan fan. Of course, they talk about Ohio State as Brady Hoke most famously did as Ohio, not Ohio State. They talked about Ohio State like they were the Ohio Bobcats. Ohio. They always referred to Ohio State. Brady Hoke did as Ohio. Big Va, the Stanford Cardinal, is the dark horse this season. Go Cardinal. George, he is just trying to be competitive in a world of bunch of cheating coaches he's competing with. So Big Va, I would not necessarily consider Stanford to be a dark horse, but that would be a slight surprise. Washington is the team to beat in the Pac-12 North. I don't know where they're playing. I don't remember that. I've been over those schedules so many times, but don't remember the Stanford-Washington game where that is going to be played this year. I believe it's at Washington because if I remember correctly, 2 years ago, the Huskies blasted, annihilated, embarrassed the Cardinal in Seattle 44-6 that propelled them to the college football playoff. Last year, Stanford got the revenge at home in Palo Alto. I believe the Stanford-Washington game in Seattle this year. Davis Mills for the Heisman. Good to have a Stanford fan on here. Big Va, good to have you on here to break up the LSU, Miami, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama. Who am I missing? Monotony. Good to hear from Stanford. I thought basically Stanford football fans, and I'm repping Stanford to a certain extent, or Alabama or Oklahoma, basically watch the games, but they didn't have time for this online business. They're too busy studying, too busy lecturing, going to lectures, going to test labs. So they watch the games. They watch the games on TV. Maybe they don't necessarily go to the games because then they would be taking time away in the travel time to the stadium and the parking, taking up that valuable studying time. But I didn't think that Stanford fans and Stanford alumni, and certainly the students themselves, had any use or any time to mess around with the foolishness that we do in going online talking Stanford football. That's why nobody's on here watching or reading or talking about Stanford. But Big Va, you are the rep for the Cardinal. Stevie Wonder, he could honestly say he didn't see anything. Stevie Wonder is always the go-to name when referencing a blind person. Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder. I don't know if we have any more modern examples. Not that we need them. All right. Anything else on the live chat? Okay. Go Halo 27. Talking my talk here. As soon as I see email or newsletter these days, this becomes the priority. Go Halos 27. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV. I believe this is the first time I've seen a comment from you. I don't know if you've been watching for one day or for 100 days or 10 years. Well, it wouldn't be 10 years. So you've been watching. I appreciate the inquiry into the newsletter. So just send an email to MarkRogersTV at Gmail. MarkRogersTV at Gmail. And basically that will put you on the mailing list. And never fear, there's nothing going to be done negatively with your email address. You will have my email address. So that should not be a deterrent to anyone joining the mailing list and getting on the weekly newsletter, because I will not clutter your inbox full of junk mail. It's going to be one newsletter per week and maybe a special edition once in a while. So again, go Halos 27. Just send your email. I would like to know your first and last name. It's not necessary. There have been a few people who have withheld their names, but everybody else has included their first and last name. And just send me an email to MarkRogersTV at Gmail, and I'll have your email address. And we'll see you on September 3rd. Buckeye State Sports talking to Uncle George here. I'm going to say that Kansas has a clean program. Kansas better have a clean program. If Kansas does not have a clean football program, then they are completely wasting their time. Navy Thomas 8, Mark, will you give the choice of what is in the background? The choice? Just basically let you know what's in the background. Are we talking about the helmets? Tom, we talking about the helmets. Got Alabama, Ole Miss, Clemson, Tennessee, Ohio State, Washington. Those are the only ones I have right now. Those six. I believe I mentioned a couple weeks ago when I first set those up why I came to those six helmets. So the first four were the college football playoff teams from 2 years ago. So I bought those helmets just prior to the playoff for my set at the time. And then there was a clearance sale at work, and they had two helmets left, and it was Ole Miss and Tennessee. If they would have had 20 left, I would have bought 20. I would love to have all the helmets from at least the Power 5 and beyond. If you want to know anything else, this is just my patio door, my French doors here that lead out to one of my patios. The other one's out back, this one out front. And the reason you see a partial street and some cars is because I'm elevated. My condo is triple stacked and elevated, so it oversees, and you see a lot of trees, and they're across the street. You can't see that right now. Maybe I'll make that explanation another time during the day. Donovan Robinson's on the line. Country Boy's on the line. Good to see you. Do late night Sunday night, September 2nd. Believe me, Country Boy, we will be here after the LSU Miami game. So I am going to be here. So let's fast forward to next week. We are going to be blasting away at these previews and predictions, and I hope to make it under the wire, because it would be mighty embarrassing if I had like 4 teams left and it was kickoff Thursday night. But if I have to stay up all night night after night after night. I'm going to get the previews done, and I am way behind. Anyway, we're going to have football, of course, this weekend. There might be a game or two that I give a look to. I'm going to have them on depending on my schedule with my daughter, my personal life, my beautiful daughter going off to college next weekend. So I want to spend as much time with her this weekend. She's going to be a sophomore and going off to college again. So I'm going to be shedding some tears, but spending some time with my daughter this weekend. So I may or may not see the two football games, the two Mountain West games. Colorado State's involved, Hawaii's involved, whoever's playing. Last year, I still remember, it was Colorado State and Oregon State, and Colorado State whipped them 58-27. I still remember that score just because I was so starved to watch college football. I was mesmerized by every play of that game, and I did an instant analysis on Oregon State, Colorado State, where the next week that would have been buried. I wouldn't even have known the score. So we've got a couple of group of 5 games on Saturday. I don't know if I'm going to address those, but you're going to see tons of previews and predictions through the weekend. And whatever comment I'm responding to is basically to say that, yeah, we're going to be blowing out the coverage over the next week to get you set for opening Thursday night, including I would like to do conference shows. I've got one lined up for Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern time. The ACC, I'm going to bring on 2 bloggers, broadcasters, writers. We're going to talk up the ACC and deliver an ACC preview special. I need to do that for all the conferences in addition to all the previews and predictions. Then Thursday night, I'm locked in on Northwestern and Purdue. If you joined the live stream last week, I pretty much ran down what my viewing schedule was going to be, what my priorities were going to be. And on Thursday night, I think it was UCF UConn at 7 o'clock. Then at 8 o'clock, Northwestern Purdue. So I catch that first quarter and a half of UConn and UCF. Then I've got 8 o'clock. I'm locked into Northwestern Purdue. Now, if that is a good game until the final seconds, then that's all I'm watching. And then the other games I've got on the alternate screens. And then we'll do some post games. So you're going to see me Thursday night next week at 11 or midnight, at whatever point the early games are over. And we'll see you for post game instant analysis. Same thing on Friday night, most likely, unless my personal life interferes. But Friday night, the same deal with Michigan State, Wisconsin in play. And again, despite Wisconsin and Michigan State playing on that Friday night, I know that there was one game that was really competitive that I was looking forward to. I believe it was Army and somebody. I don't have the schedule in front of me right now. Anyway, then on Saturday, we're going to do our pregame at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then we'll carry it all the way through the day with instant analysis. And that will be our Saturday go-to schedule here at Mark Rogers TV. All right. So yes, I will be back on Sunday night following LSU in Miami. And maybe we'll do pregame. And maybe we'll do pregame of Virginia Tech and Florida State the next night. All right. Who else is on here? Bill Doyle. I have yet to see you. Big Penn State fan. Welcome, Bill, to Mark Rogers TV. Hopefully you caught my conversation with Tim Aiden from Black Shoe Diaries a couple of weeks ago as we gave you a fall camp update. It was a great conversation with Tim Aiden as we do our best to keep track of the Nittany Lions. So anybody who's new to the channel, I am attempting, my approach is to cover the entire Power 5 structure. I would like to cover, I've got nothing against the group of 5. I love the group of 5. I went to the American Conference Media Days, but it's just impossible to cover the group of 5. So you'll see a smattering of group of 5, depending on, especially a Thursday or Friday night, if I'm able to catch a game. But mostly we cover the Power 5 here in the major independents, of course. And if there are teams that I don't hit or seem to hit, I've got nothing against those teams. It's that I don't have guest contributors to bring on the show. For example, I had a Texas guy at one point, and we talked Texas football all the time. I've been a bit void of Texas guests recently. Therefore, my Texas talk has been not quite what it should be. And on and on and on. So, not a whole lot of Wisconsin recently, Michigan State, Virginia Tech. We're missing some of those teams. I really need a USC contributor. Ryan Abraham from USCfootball.com. It's one of the premier USC football sites. He's come on many times. He got back to me this week. He's just been slammed and not able to come on the show, but he certainly wants to. Prince is here. Good sir. And you. Okay. I'm sure, Prince, you are saying hi to myself, but more directly to the chat here. All right. Have we made it to the bottom here? Clemson Alum 98, Tiger Nation, Leon Hurricanes, all here. Dennis Wilson talking up Miami. And I think we've made it to the bottom of the chat. I am still waiting and watching here, ESPN2, to see when this announcement is coming down concerning Urban Meyer and Ohio State. There has to be some level of negotiation going on, and I would believe that it would be concerning a suspension, both from the indication of the length of time that it's taking them to iron this out and to come to resolution and agreement, and then also the tweet that was sent out earlier by Dave Biddle from 247 Sports that said, Board of Trustees at Ohio State says, dismiss any wrongdoing, that there was no wrongdoing, that Urban Meyer's in the clear. He needs to be reinstated immediately. That Urban Meyer obviously would agree with that. But the president of the Ohio State University believes that there should be a suspension. I would also not be surprised that the university would announce some type of fund, some type of donation, some type of philanthropic endeavor set up for victims of sexual or domestic violence and abuse. It seems as though, from a PR standpoint, it's the wise thing to do to say, regardless of us exonerating Urban Meyer and believing that we went through the proper channels, we are saddened by the events. We are saddened by this cause and by this issue in society. Therefore, we are setting up some type of fund or donation or some type of charity work that is going to go into the name of, and I doubt that they're going to go to that degree because they want to detach themselves from the name of Zach Smith or Courtney Smith, but that they may go to that degree to show their sympathy, to show their care for this issue. I would not be surprised if we heard that as well. Just a thought. I've not heard that anywhere else, but that could be. Buckeye State Sports, there's a crazy amount of OSU haters. No matter what they do, I will get bad PR. Yeah. Gables Kane, hey, Mark, hope all is well. It is well. Jim Kelly, if Meyer suspended, Drake gets fired and runs out of Ohio. Navy Thomas 8 is telling us that maybe this gets saved for Friday. That would be a long negotiations. All right, let's get to the AP Top 25. So to remind you, the audio is available at Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. And of course, we are in the midst of our ACC previews. Boston College, Wake Forest, Syracuse, and Louisville are available. NC State, Clemson, and Florida State coming out tonight. All right, the AP Top 25. You guys let me know where it's missed. And I'll make the statement that for the preseason Top 25, I don't have an issue with any ranking for any team. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion on whether I think these teams are going to supersede the expectation. or fall short of the expectation or meet the expectation based on where they are projected based on the top 25. I don't have an issue if the AP came out preseason before a game was played and put Kansas number 1, Illinois 2, Rutgers 3, Purdue 4, and Oregon State 5. I would have no issue with that because they haven't played any games. And as soon as those teams went out and lost a game, as long as they were properly placed and plummeted to the bottom and out of the top 25, I don't care what the preseason top 25 is. You have basically two approaches that different sets of people take. You have your people that look at both the talent coming back, the talent coming into the program, the talent lost, and they make an assessment that this particular team is this good. Then they look at the schedule and weigh it against the talent and the coach and think and make an assessment that this team is really good, but this schedule is brutal. I was going to rank this team maybe 5 to 8 in the poll, but because the schedule is brutal, I'm going to drop them to 15. Or the other way around. This team is good, but they're not that great. But man, they've got all the key games at home. They don't play anybody non-conference. They're really going to rise in the rankings, and I'm going to put them at number 7. I don't think they're the 7th best team in the country, but I'm going to rank them at number 7. You've got the people that weigh in the schedule and make a projection. I'm not one of those people. If I deliver a top 25 preseason, I am telling you, these are the teams I believe to be the 25 best teams in the country. And I'm not trying to project them against their schedule. I am telling you that Alabama's the best team in the country. Clemson's the second best team in the country. Oklahoma's the third best team in the country, etc. Whatever it is. But I understand both approaches, but I don't advocate the first one because you're basically projecting and penalizing or rewarding a team based on what you project to see happen or expect to see happen, rather than just letting the results fall into play and taking it from there. So my approach, and you're going to see this after week 1, after the first games of the season, that first weekend, I am going to rank my top 25 and release it against the top 25. Let's say Maryland beats Texas. We think Texas is good, and they probably will be good. And even if they lose again to Maryland, which is unthinkable, but let's say they lose again to Maryland, Texas could still finish 9-3 or 8-4 and be a really good team in the top 15 to 25 of the nation. Okay, we don't know that at that point, but we still think Texas is pretty good. Let's say Maryland beats Texas. I'm going to rank that Maryland win over Texas against all the other wins in week 1. And I know I catch a big backlash for this, but I would rank Maryland, let's say, 8th in the country after week 1. And people are like, you're crazy. Maryland's not the 8th best team in the country. I know that Maryland is not the 8th best team in the country. But based on one game played, in my estimation, of the teams on the field and what else happened around college football, that Maryland deserves the number 8 ranking for one game. After one game, Maryland deserves to be number 8. And I'm just throwing out a ranking. I believe last year, after they beat Texas in week 1, that I ranked Maryland 16th or 13th. And actually, I can't remember who Ohio State beat in week 1. But I instantly dropped them behind Maryland because Maryland beat Texas and Ohio State beat Bowling Green, I believe. Somebody like that. And people were like, you think Maryland's better than Ohio State? You're ranking Maryland ahead of Ohio State. Ohio State shouldn't drop that low. They're 1-0. Calm down. Maryland beat Texas. Ohio State beat Bowling Green. Maryland should be ranked ahead of Ohio State based on both teams being 1-0 and beating a much, much better team. Ohio State will most likely continue to win, and they will rise in the rankings as they continue to win. Maryland's going to lose, and they will drop in the rankings. But if the unthinkable happens and Maryland continues to win, I'm going to keep them up in the rankings and continue to progress. Maryland. Do you guys get that? Does that make any sense to anyone? Okay, here's our top 25 according to the AP. Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Georgia 3, Wisconsin 4, Ohio State 5. So the only thing that stands out to me is the obvious that I believe Ohio State dropped in the writer's estimation based on the Urban Meyer situation. That if Urban Meyer is dismissed, that Ohio State's going to be hurt by that situation. Missing arguably the best coach in the country and one of the top coaches in history. Also, that if Urban Meyer is reinstated, that it's still a distraction and it's hurting this football team and could have long-term impact. That's got to be the estimation because nobody was estimating outside of a handful of people that Ohio State would be ranked behind Wisconsin to start the season. I have no issue with that projection. Again, I don't have issues with anybody being ranked anywhere after 0 games. Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Georgia 3, Wisconsin 4, Ohio State 5. That's the top 5. Let me know what you think. The second half of the top 10 is Washington 6, Oklahoma 7, Miami 8, Auburn 9, Penn State 10. Okay, so at 11, we've got Michigan State, Notre Dame at 12, Stanford at 13, 14 is Michigan, and 15 is USC. And then, starting with 16, we've got TCU, West Virginia, Mississippi State, Florida State, Virginia Tech. And then in the final 5 of the top 25, UCF. And let's promo once again that coming up at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, we've got Jeff Sharon on the line to talk UCF football as the Black Knights, not the Black Knights, just the Knights. That's Army. The Knights get prepared to take on UConn next Thursday night. The final 5 of the preseason top 25, courtesy the AP, is UCF, Boise State, Texas, Oregon, and LSU. That is compared to the coaches poll top 25. Top 5, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Oklahoma. Again, the coaches not thinking that there's an issue with Ohio State and the distraction from the Urban Meyer situation. Wisconsin has a 3-spot difference from the AP top 25 at number 4 to the coaches poll at number 7. The second 5 in the top 10, according to the coaches, goes, or the sports information directors, Washington 6, Wisconsin 7, Miami 8, Penn State 9, Auburn 10. There's also that faction of voters out there that believe that you earned your position in the preseason poll based on what happened last season. So unless there is a glut of players leaving the program, that if you went 11-2 and were a top 8 team in the nation last year, then you earned a spot in the preseason poll until you get knocked down. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can understand it. All right, 11 through 15 is Notre Dame, Michigan State, Stanford, Michigan, USC, which is almost exact to the AP poll that just has Notre Dame and Michigan State flipped. TCU at 16, Virginia Tech 17, Mississippi State 18, Florida State 19, and West Virginia 20. In the final 5 of the coaches poll top 25, you've got Texas, Boise State, UCF, LSU, and Oklahoma State. So discrepancies once again. Ohio State number 5 in the AP, number 3 in the coaches poll. Wisconsin at 4 in the AP poll, number 7 according to the coaches. Georgia at 3 and 4. Oklahoma at 7 according to the AP, all the way up to number 5 in the coaches poll. You've got Auburn at 9 and 10, Penn State at 10 and 9, Notre Dame, Michigan State flip-flopped to 10 and 11, or 11 and 12. Stanford, Michigan, USC, TCU, all in the 13 through 16 spots. West Virginia, 17 according to the AP poll. The coaches don't like them quite as much at number 20. Florida State at 19 in both polls. Mississippi State at 18 in both polls. Virginia Tech at 17 according to the coaches. They're down at 20 according to the AP poll, which just has Virginia Tech and West Virginia flipped. They, of course, played the first game of last season on Labor Day night with Virginia Tech winning. UCF at 21 and 23, Boise State at 22 across the board, Texas at 23 and 21. Oregon is in the AP poll, but not the coaches poll. And Oklahoma State is in the coaches poll, but not the AP poll. That's the only team. Those are the only two teams and the only one spot that differs in terms of a team being left out of the top 25 or included. Oregon in the AP, and the coaches poll named Oklahoma State at 25. LSU's at 25 and 24 in the two polls. And it means nothing. It's good to talk about. It's interesting. I will check out the chat and then let you guys know as I'm checking my messages who I think is too high or too low, as we're joined by Jeff Sharon talking UCF football. Jeff, how you doing tonight?
Hey, what's going on, Mark? I'm checking in a little early with you.
No, that's quite all right. So we've got a number of people on the line. We've got about 54 watching us currently. So typically, Jeff, I'm throwing you right into the fire, and I apologize because typically I'll have a guest like yourself, and especially for the first time on, but I'll have any guest at any point, even if they've made 100 appearances, and typically you join the link and I've got it on private mode. And then we talk about whatever we're going to talk about and I get you all set up and then we introduce you. But with all this Urban Meyer business going on and an expected verdict announced, it's coming on ESPN2 right now. I don't know if they have anything or if this is just some kind of generic update. I believe it's most likely just a generic update. But anyway, with Urban Meyer and the AP Top 25 and the All-American teams being named this week, we thought we would jump on a little bit early and have you join us at your convenience. So, Jeff, how you doing today?
Good, Mark. It's first time on the show. I want to thank you for having me for the first time, and I'm glad we could finally hook up. It's been I've been a fan of the show for a while, and I'm glad to be on here with you.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you so much. And before we start talking UCF, and again, the Urban Meyer situation, we'll let that keep going, and I'm sure they'll be standing at a podium forever. I would like to let everyone know out there before we get started where they can find you both on Twitter, any other social media, podcasts, or writing.
Sure. Well, the place where I guess I do my most college football work is at blackandgoldbanneret.com. We've been around for 3 years. It is the newly minted UCF team site for SB Nation. For the first time, SB Nation has a UCF site, and it's us. You can follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. You can follow me individually at Jeff_Sharon. We're also at Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret as well.
All right, Jeff. So looking at this team last season, let's go back to last season before we projected 2018, because what occurred last season was special. It was remarkable. It should be rewarded regardless of your take on the whole Power 5 issue and so forth. I know that I've campaigned for the national championship, and the ability or the freedom to proclaim a national championship, not necessarily that they should be proclaimed a national title, but they've got every right in the world, in my book, to make that claim. So my thoughts, let's go back again to 2017. Were you shocked by the results, by the uniqueness of the season, that from 0-12 to 6 wins and then bam, to a perfect season, that it happened that quickly?
You know, I wish I could say that I was shocked. I wouldn't say I was shocked. I think that we were definitely surprised at how quickly the turnaround under Scott Frost happened, because like you said, in 2015, when UCF went 0-12 in George O'Leary's final year, and he was essentially let go in the middle of the year, and Danny Barrett finished up. UCF wasn't just 0-12. They were a horrible 0-12. I can write in 2005, O'Leary's first year at UCF, UCF did go 0-11. And he was in the process of changing the culture from the Gene McDowell / Mike Kruzek era to into really making UCF a big time, or at least laying the foundation to try and get them to be a big time program. And that year, I remember I was a senior actually at UCF that year. They were, even though they lost every game, you still got the feeling that they were, putting forth the effort, enough effort to try and win games. They just weren't talented. The 2015 team was just flat bad. They quit about 4 games into the season. So when Scott Frost comes in, they go 6-7 his first year. They're actually 6-4 at one point and lost their last 3, including the bowl game in Orlando, believe it or not, to a very good Arkansas State team. We thought that they were primed and ready for a run at the conference, that it would pretty much be a 2-horse race between UCF and USF, leading into for the American East crown, and then whatever happens in the championship game, that's fine. We were expecting 10 wins would probably have been like the best case scenario, but then when the wins started piling up, and you suddenly look at the schedule and you think, wow, okay, everything is kind of breaking in a way that UCF is going to end up possibly undefeated heading into that USF game on Thanksgiving weekend, on Black Friday. And lo and behold, the greatest 8 and most nerve-wracking 8 days in the history of UCF's football program, between the 49-42 win against South Florida and 8 days later, the 62-55 overtime win over Memphis to win the American Athletic Conference Championship. And poof, there's UCF all of a sudden in a New Year's Six bowl for the second time in 4 years, and playing Auburn. And then again, we were thinking, well, maybe, who knows what happens? I mean, in a bowl game situation, you're playing against an SEC team, a power team like Auburn. This thing can go one of 2 ways. Certainly a different matchup than UCF had with Baylor back in 2013, January 1st, 2014. And despite what was a really bad first half by Mackenzie Milton, all of a sudden UCF comes plowing through. I think they scored 21 consecutive points at one point in the game, and they hold on and win. And it just goes to show you that let's give George O'Leary some credit, because he always used to talk about, and a lot of coaches do, about 13 one-game seasons. And Scott Frost and UCF won 13 one-game seasons, one at a time. And you look back at it, and it's a masterpiece. But looking back at 17, I think you mentioned, there's a lot of discussion about, and the controversy throughout the offseason about, especially, in social media circles about, is UCF, justified in claiming a national championship? I know I wrote about that on blackandgoldbanneret.com many times, but I think that it was not just a brilliant form of marketing. It was a situation where they really do believe they were the best team in the country last year. And to be honest with you, I'd put them up against anybody in last year, including Alabama and Georgia and teams like Clemson. And it's too bad we can't see what UCF could have done in that situation.
Yeah, Jeff Sharon on the line talking UCF football. The Ohio State news conference is going on right now, so we're going to cover that as well. So just hang tight. We're getting some contributors on the line to talk the Ohio State situation, with Ohio State suspending Urban Meyer for the first 3 games for mishandling domestic assault accusations against Zach Smith. So that announcement is coming right now, and we will get some reaction from that as well. So Jeff, when you look at the Scott Frost situation, obviously not just taking himself, but much of his staff to Nebraska, what are the expectations for this football team this year?
Well, he didn't just take most of his staff. He took all of his staff to Nebraska. Not a single guy got left behind at UCF, which made Danny White's situation pretty difficult in hiring Josh Heupel, but he did. But I think that you do the best that you can in that situation. He brought in Randy Shannon as the defensive coordinator, who's also obviously going to do plenty of recruiting, which was much applauded hire as well. Obviously, a former head coach in Shannon, Heupel in his first year as a head coach. The expectations for UCF, I think, among reasonable people, is fairly high. They should contend for the American crown once again. Will they go undefeated again? Boy, that would be a heck of a feat if they were able to do that. But as far as UCF is concerned, they do bring back a lot of talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Mackenzie Milton comes back. They return, I think, 88% of their rushing production from last year. People think that that Frost's offense was a passing offense. It wasn't. It was primarily predicated on the run. They lose Traquan Smith and Jordan Akins, their star wide receiver and tight end, but they had a lot of guys who stepped up in the meantime. And then on defense, obviously, you lose a great leader like Shaquem Griffin, a couple guys off the D line, and Trey Neal, the defensive back, who actually transferred as a grad student to Nebraska. But let's give the previous staff some credit. They recruited a lot of depth at those positions. So even though you lose a lot of production, they should be in very good shape to contend once again in 2018.
So again, want to let everyone know, and I hate to take the time here from Jeff, but just need to explain and clarify this, that Urban Meyer's decision has come down from the Board of Trustees at The Ohio State University. He's been suspended for 3 games, and obviously the press conference, the news conference going on right now, or yes, it is, and we will get some reaction to that very shortly. But we'll talk some UCF football, and we're efforting some other guests currently via my cell phone. So Jeff,
welcome to 2018, Mark. Here we go.
What's that, Jeff?
Welcome to 2018.
Absolutely.
Doing stuff on the fly, man.
You operate everything from the chair here as best I can. You can join Jeff there at the Black and Gold banner. It's the SB Nation platform for UCF football. In regards to Josh Heupel's experience, most college football fans know his work from winning a national championship as a quarterback at Oklahoma. Obviously, once they go into their silos in various programs as a coordinator, then if you're locked into that particular program, your understanding of their development and progress in shaping an offense in this particular case. Your thoughts about Josh Heupel's readiness for this job, considering it's not just another group of 5 jobs suddenly.
You know, I'm actually fairly confident in Josh Heupel's readiness for the job. I think he's embraced the culture at UCF that's been developing over the last several years. He's gotten the players to bought in, as we've seen from some of the things that they've done in the offseason, from some of the things that they've done actually in camp. Most importantly, I do think that he brings a welcome change of theme for the program. You know, it's interesting. Scott Frost, when he came to UCF, he was the golden boy. He was even going back to his days in high school. He was a standout player in high school in Nebraska, coached by his parents, believe it or not, both of his parents. Went to Stanford initially, transferred to Nebraska, won a national championship. And if you meet Scott, it's like you look at him and you're like, this guy's straight out of Central Casting. Josh Heupel's career took a much different trajectory, as I'm sure you recall. You know, when he wasn't very highly recruited out of high school, went to community college, excelled as a junior college player, got to Oklahoma, and I believe the legend is that he was somehow 9th on the depth chart, which I didn't even know teams could carry 9 quarterbacks, and then managed to get himself into the starting position and win the national championship under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. And the idea is, you know, Heupel's been told every step along the way that you're not good enough, that you're too small, your arm's too weak, all those things that kind of fires up a competitor. And lo and behold, here's UCF coming in off of 2017, and people are still telling them, these players that are still here, you guys aren't good enough. You're a flash in the pan. You don't really matter. And I think he brings the right attitude to this team where he's like, guys, I've been here before, and I'm going to show you the way to show everybody that we really are for real. And I think that's going to be the ongoing theme for UCF. No, they just released their social media campaign, and it's not defending champions, attacking champions. That's what they're saying about UCF coming into 2018.
Jeff Sharon talking UCF football. Obviously, the big story is the breaking news concerning Urban Meyer suspended for 3 games, the first 3 games of 2018. Also, athletic director Gene Smith suspended as well. Jeff, I hate to cut you short. We'll clip this conversation. I'm going to take this offline, and I will be sending this out and posting this on our YouTube channel as just a Central Florida discussion with Jeff. And Jeff, we'll have you back. It's UConn next Thursday night, correct?
That's right. UConn Thursday night, 7 o'clock on I believe ESPN U, if I'm not mistaken, but double check me on that.
Maybe a little pregame and post if you've got time.
Sounds good. Thanks you,
Mark. A lot, Jeff.
All right, good talking to you.
We appreciate it. All right, we got Claire Crawford on the line to talk the Urban Meyer situation. Claire responded to a text within about 3 minutes. Thank you so much, Claire.
Of course. Anytime for you, Mark. We've all been waiting with bated breath, not just for weeks, but all day today. They really teased us with an announcement that the pool of media was at the Longaberger Alumni House for well over 12 hours waiting over the deliberation of the board of trustees and with Michael Drake. It is I'm just diving right in. Hopefully that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. Go to it.
Right. So it was reported by a couple different sources that the reason the deliberation took so long over what the decision of the punishment would be, and it sounded like there would be some sort of suspension at the very least. I think everyone went in expecting it to be something like a game suspension, and then it would be almost like time served. However, after a very, very, very long day, everyone's wives showed up at some point to the Longaberger Alumni House as a part of these deliberations. It came down that Urban Meyer will serve a 3-game suspension as well. So I think a lot of us are surprised seeing that was not really what we had expected, or the word that was really kind of coming out. I know that at one point it was Michael Drake that was insisting that Urban serve some sort of suspension, and the pushback was that Urban believed that he should not, and that there was no wrongdoing on his part. So I am curious as to where the breakdown was and who is responsible for it, and moving forward we'll know a lot more details.
Yeah, because the conclusion that you have to come to is that when there's a decision involving somebody's actions with this important of information, that either they went through the proper channels, did the right thing, and therefore they're exonerated and they're cleared, or they did not handle the information correctly. Therefore, this is such a serious issue that they didn't handle the information, they didn't go through the channels, they didn't communicate it, they did the wrong thing, and therefore, based on the stipulations in his contract, should be dismissed. That there wouldn't be a whole lot of middle ground here.
Right. And the reason it's curious that Gene Smith has also serving a suspension would lead me to believe that the information that Gene Smith received was not handled correctly. So again, it seems like it should be either one or the other. Either Urban reported it and it wasn't handled correctly, and then the onus would be on Gene Smith, or Urban didn't report it and somehow Gene Smith knew, and then they would both be at fault. That is really my only explanation in my own mind as to why both of them would be suspended at this point. But I am using logic, and it's possible that this was a very long day and they came to an impasse and decided that that's what was fair somehow.
So there's been 2 to 3 weeks that the Board of Trustees has been able to do fact finding and arrive at a decision, and they wanted to do their due diligence, as they stated many times, but at the same time thought that they could wrap this up within 2 to 3 weeks, and then announced that this day, Wednesday, would be the day that they would make the announcement, or at least that they would meet, and therefore there was a certain assumption that they would make an announcement, and that it would come at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it, dragged on another 4 or 5 hours more than anticipated, which speaks to exactly what you're talking about there not being complete agreement. And now we understand why, of what the final conclusion would be, especially concerning Urban Meyer.
It is all very, very confusing. And much like what goes around in politics these days, there is a lot of distraction and sleight of hand that happened in the media in the last couple days, specifically talking about some of the things that Zach Smith was involved in. However awful and whatever judgment you want to pass on it was not relevant to the investigation, nor was it relevant to Urban Meyer or towards doling out any punishment. I have my own opinion on those things and what happened, and I'll save it for not here or now, or maybe not at all. But it's been a very kind of look over here at this, what's going on. Meanwhile, the serious investigation was happening.
Can you see it right now, Claire? Can you see what's on the air right now? Can you see the news conference?
No.
Okay. I will let you go. Urban Meyer just stepped to the podium if you'd like to watch it.
I absolutely would love to watch
Okay.
it.
He just stepped to the podium. We will see you next time. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay, everyone. We're going to listen to Urban Meyer together here.
Because at each juncture, I gave Zach Smith the benefit of the doubt. As I reflect my loyalty to his grandfather, Earl Bruce, who was a mentor and like a father to me, likely impacted how I treated Zach over the years. I did not know everything about Zach Smith, which was what Zach Smith was doing, and I'm pleased that the report made this very clear. However, I should have demanded more from him and recognized red flags. I needed to show more care and concern for the entirety of the situation and the people involved. I should have been more demanding of him in the same way I am with my players, other staff members, and myself. I should have done more, and I am sorry for that. I did a poor job at Media Day. It's a big reason why we're here today. I was not being as complete, as accurate as I should have been at Media Day and afterward, but there was no intent to mislead. My role is to set a good example. In this instant, I did not live up to the university's standards. The suspensions are tough, but I fully accept them. I wish I could go back and make the different decisions, but I can't. These difficult lessons are a constant reminder of the duties and obligations that I have as a member of this university and this community. I take this responsibility very seriously, and I will do better. I've been a Buckeye my entire life. For the past 6 years, I've worked diligently to build a program that the great state of Ohio, that Ohio State can be very proud of. And I appreciate the opportunity to learn from a mistake, and I will work as hard as I ever have to make our strong program even stronger. Thank you very much.
Urban Owens Columbus Dispatch. For Urban and Gene, how hard is it to accept the suspension? And when Urban, especially you,
there's questions being asked right now of Urban Meyer and Gene Smith. I'm going to unplug the mic so you can hear that a little bit better, and you can certainly obviously watch there at home, and then we'll jump back on here and talk it up.
I'm sorry,
what things do you regret handling in this matter, specifically with Zach Smith?
Think about it. I answered your question earlier, Bill. I have huge regret for my inability to be the effective leader that I should have been in this particular situation. The greatest pain that I have is the people that I serve every single day. The 565 employees that I go to work with every day, the 1,000+ student athletes that we work for every day, and of course, all of Buckeye Nation in this institution. But it's been painful. It's been hard, particularly when people like you reached out to me and wanted me to comment, and I wanted to have an opportunity to correct some of the things that were being said. Very difficult for me. And so it's been hard, but I'm very supportive of where we are today. We have a valuable lesson that we learned. We're going to move forward, and we're going to be stronger for it. So I'm very supportive of the decisions that have been made.
Bill, please repeat the question. I also want to know about Zach Smith is work-related. And I've, throughout my career, taken an approach when I see someone distressed or someone struggling, I seek to get counsel and help for that person. And the biggest regret, I wish I would know more. If I would know more, I would take action much quicker.
Dan Murphy, ESPN. President Drake and Dean Smith, can you tell us, the 10 hours is a long time to deliberate anything. Can you tell us what the conversations were today and why it took that amount of time to reach a decision? And then for Coach Meyer, do you feel you should have been suspended for what happened?
So the discussion today was with our entire board. And so there were many people involved. We had heard the findings a couple of days ago preliminarily, and then had a chance to discuss and deliberate those today. We wanted to be fair. We wanted to be equitable. We wanted to be just. We wanted to be appropriate. And we worked to refine our decisions and our actions to be able to do the best that we could to achieve those goals. It's a very difficult and complicated situation, many things to consider over a long period of time. And the reason that it took 10 hours of this is to try to make sure that we were being thoughtful and considerate in every case. And the goal of all of it is to first learn what we can, and as Gene said, to make our program, our university stronger and better. And we know also this is one of those circumstances where there's no right answer. It's very difficult to, not possible to do just something that makes everyone happy. And so in that circumstance, we're trying not to seek the sole perfect answer for everyone, but to be fair, to be just, to be equitable, to be appropriate, and to do what we can to help us make our program stronger.
Dan, just to be clear, I was not part of those deliberations.
Feel that you should have been suspended, or you upset with the ultimate decision?
I trust and support our president.
Gene, Ari Wasserman from The Athletic. I'm just wondering, can you give us some more insight as to why the decision was made to fire Zach Smith when you did, if there was prior knowledge to this, because it kind of just happened in Chicago? And Urban, do you feel that you've done an adequate job throughout your entire career reading your employees and making sure that people are, not troubled? Because it seems that Zach Smith, dating back to 2015 and 2013 with the OVI, I mean, what is a coach's responsibility in trying to find those things out and noticing them just based on what you see in the building?
So, Ari, to your question, Urban and I had conversations throughout that day, and ultimately he came to a decision where he wanted to terminate Zach Smith as a result of a number of different things over Zach's tenure. So I'd have to really let Urban just articulate that a little bit more. But he made that recommendation. I 100% supported it, but it wasn't just because of that singular incident.
Please repeat.
When you're just in the building, given the fact that it seems that Zach Smith's been a troubled employee for 9 years, what is your role as Ohio State's head coach in noticing things, kind of getting a gauge of your employees and making sure that you're aware of the things that go on in their lives, and a little bit more insight into your decision to fire Zach when you did?
Well, as a head coach, you're ultimately responsible for everybody's behavior, and that's a very difficult thing to do. We all know that. However, there were red flags, and I wish I had known. I wish I did a better job of finding things out. I wish I was told more things. But ultimately, that's part of the job, that you're ultimately responsible to represent this incredible university. And I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd known more. Second part was
just the idea or the reason for firing Zach Smith when you guys did.
I received on that week, I can't remember the exact date, that someone told me there was a court date. Was I aware of a court date involving Zach? I said I was not. They started explaining to me it was a trespassing issue. So I immediately contacted Gene. I told Brian Voltwing to find out more about what had happened. And I actually called Zach Smith in. He was on vacation. I had him come in and say, what was this all about? He told me in great detail what had happened, and that he was dropping his children off at a certain location, and then went to the house and eventually had a citation for trespassing. He made it sound like it was not that big a deal. I told Gene, and Gene and I both decided to just keep him updated. And I was very disappointed it happened approximately 2 months prior to that. I was very upset that he didn't share that with me. And I made that clear. You have to keep me exactly posted on any situation like this so I can alert Gene. And then I go to media days, and that Monday I find out there's a restraining order, and that's when termination became into my mind. First of all, the seriousness of a restraining order, and also, again, the fact that I made very clear that you keep me posted and alert me to any situation, and he did not do that. And later that day, I made the decision to fire him.
Doug Maurice from Cleveland.com, Gene, and I guess President Drake as well. We know Urban was aware of domestic abuse allegations against Zach Smith at Florida in 2009. Gene, were you aware of those allegations when Zach Smith was hired at Ohio State in 2012?
No, I was not.
Is that a problem, and will there be a review of hiring practices at all? Should Ohio State have been informed about that, since Urban knew that when he chose to hire Zach Smith in 2012? Is that something that should have been divulged to Ohio State when he was hired?
That's a great question. Appreciate it. I had a conversation with our new Vice President for Human Resources today around our hiring practices and how we might be able to expand on our effort relative to our background checks. Obviously, all of our employees go through a standard background check, but the reality is we can probably go deeper with some positions, and that's one that we can go deeper on. So I'm committed to work with her as we move forward to implement new tactics and strategies to make sure that we can be a lot more thorough so that hopefully this never happens again. Good question, Doug. Thank you.
And President Drake, you weren't here at that time, but do you feel that was a failure or a mistake on Ohio State's part that Zach Smith was hired here to begin with?
You know, the policies that were in place then were the policies that were in place then. As Gene said, background checks were done as they are on all employees. It would be good to know more information than that, particularly for particular certain positions. So I, again, support that. As Gene said, I know he spoke with HR today about things we can do to have more information when hiring, and that would be something that would be an improvement for the future.
And on the process of the decision-making today, President Drake, what kind of consideration was there given in that process to firing Gene Smith or Urban Meyer?
I would say that, to be fair, we looked at the findings, and then we considered the range of options that might be available, and we wanted to consider the entire range of options that might be available, and then worked hard to find a place that we thought was just, fair, and appropriate. And as I said, again, would lead us to the lessons that would allow us to be a stronger university moving forward.
Tim May, Columbus Dispatch. Dr. Drake, according to the narrative that was given out here, the way I read it, Gene Smith was aware of the Zach Smith situation.
Okay, hopefully my mic's working since I unplugged and plugged, but that's what you guys get for watching a first-rate production operation right here. So, yes, let's go through the logistics here. I'm going to go back and watch whatever else is being stated by the president, the athletic director, and Urban Meyer himself. I will do that later tonight. And as well, just wanted to go over the situation because everything that's been stated over here in the last 5 to 10 minutes has been a general response to some questions that weren't necessarily pointed in any particular direction. They were kind of vague, like just a number of, broad questions that were addressed. So let's get down to it right here and let's address this situation. Urban Meyer's been suspended for 3 games, Oregon State, Tulane, and TCU. Very few people would think that there's an issue with the actual games being played and winning the games the first 2 weeks. It has more to do with the TCU game from a football standpoint. We're talking has to do with the TCU game. It has to do with the impact on this team for the entire season. What that will be, I don't have a guess. I do know that my guess would include the stability of the staff, including what many people to believe an up-and-comer in Ryan Day, and then also Greg Schiano and Kevin Wilson on the offensive and defensive sides, having the amount of experience that they do, that Ohio State's very fortified in regards to the coach aspect on the field, coaching from the sideline during the games, coaching throughout the week in terms of practice. Yes, running the program is a different matter, and Urban Meyer would be greatly missed over a long period of time running the program. But those are football minds, and they're high-level football minds that have achieved and worked well, leading programs, leading offenses, and leading the everyday practice of getting better at football. So I don't think that this is going to be a real logistical issue for Ohio State. It could seep into the players' minds. You never know what the psychology of it is going to be, and that's going to not impact the team all exactly the same. Everyone's individually unique and going to react and process this differently. All right. What I have an issue with, and I will not be able to completely come to grips with until I watch all of this and take it all in and understand a little bit better the reasoning, what I have an issue with is that Urban Meyer's been suspended for 3 games. I would think that either he, being brought this information, both in a number of avenues brought this information, either dealt with it correctly, as is deemed by anyone in his position, as deemed by his contract, as deemed by the expectations of his position, and is deemed by anyone with any kind of reasonable moral compass, that he either dealt with it correctly or incorrectly, which we thought initially out of the gate might be the case that would have led to his firing and dismissal. But it turned out to be a explanation of he didn't handle the information well, he didn't handle the situation well, he made misstatements, there wasn't a cover-up, it was just confusion, and therefore he gets the initial hit, takes the initial hit of the information, then he takes the initial hit of the delay of the communication of that information to Gene Smith, and Gene Smith takes the hit for not being as harsh as he should have been with the information and the investigation and the conclusion and the findings. So he gets suspended for 16 days between August 31st and September 16th. And so that's where we stand with all this. I can't say I've got a whole lot more to make out of this until I can rummage through all the statements and listen to this. And I don't have a whole lot more to say. I will respond to what you guys have. But Urban Meyer, this is going to be a hit to his legacy to some extent. Although, let's go a level higher to a multi-time, 5-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots organization that doesn't seem to take any hits in perception of legacy for all the things that they've been involved with that have cheated the game. This is a different circumstance. This is a legality. This involves a young lady and a domestic situation that apparently wasn't handled well once the information was found out of what was going on or what might have been going on that needed to be investigated. All right, folks, we've talked UCF football. We've looked at the top 25. I didn't really give you my thoughts on who should be higher or lower. As mentioned, I don't have an issue with the top 25. You can rank them wherever you want the first week. The preseason week, you rank them wherever you want. It doesn't matter to me. Once they play a game, I am going to have much to say as I did last year, each and every Sunday, analyzing the top 25 and then delivering what I called my common sense, Mark Rogers TV, common sense top 25. All right, folks, what do you think here? I can't think of anything else that I really need to address with this. I am a bit surprised. I thought that Urban Meyer, I thought early in the day, going into the day, that Urban Meyer would be completely dismissed of any wrongdoing based on everything I had heard, and not that he did nothing wrong, but nothing wrong could be really substantiated and confirmed to the hilt that it was damaging to that extent. But apparently I was wrong, and the longer this lasted throughout the day, the more that became apparent that this was going to be a harsher punishment than many of us believed. Still less than what I thought it might be the first 24 to 48 hours after this broke, and after the Big Ten Media Days, and then the Brett McMurphy follow-up to the situation, in which we knew there was a 2009 incident and a 2015 incident, and Urban Meyer knew about it. At that point, it looked damning. All right, yes, domestic violence is sickening. NCIS Fanatic 21, and you guys saw more of these news conferences than I saw nothing except for the very tail end of Gene Smith, and then the Urban Meyer statement and some of the responses there. But in regards to seeing the statements themselves, I did not. And there you go. All right, so it's going to be week 1 of, I believe, the Big Ten season. Week 1 of the Big Ten season. George, I can't necessarily answer that question about whether I'm content with the decision. Again, I'm a bit, I'm just a bit disturbed at what would seem to be either a decisive call on handling the situation well, handling the information, getting it into the proper hands, and doing all the right things, and it being exonerated and dismissed as not guilty and job reinstated immediately, or as the Board of Trustees apparently wanted to do, but it was the university president who I believe, I don't want to question his ethics, but might be panning to public opinion. The public opinion would be, okay, we do condemn this or look down on this, and we'll punish this type of behavior if it's not dealt with completely to protocol, and we don't deal with these severely, these types of situations and this information severely, therefore 3-game suspension. But I would have liked to have seen it be more decisive. Either he did the right thing or he did not do the right thing. Did you see Urban nod his head no when they said he lied at Big Ten Media Day? And also notice that when he was asked whether he supported the decision of the 3-game suspension, he basically said, I trust and support, or whether he agreed with the suspension. He mentioned that he trusted and supported the university president's decision. He didn't say he agreed with it. Yes, pander to public opinion. Too much of that going on these days. All right, George, let's see what phone number we have for you. It's been so long since I even looked at this. We're on phone burner with phone number. Oh, goodness. It's showing me my actual phone number. So my apologies. I re-upped the subscription, but of course, as you guys saw, that there wasn't a whole lot of activity on the phone lines that we have currently. All right. I'm going to take this in, and possibly we'll be back later tonight to talk Ohio State football and the Urban Meyer situation. I did want to touch more on the top 25 rankings, the All-American teams, and some other very important news involving Wisconsin, USC, and Colorado State. Mike Bobo, fortunately, has cleared a number of tests. He's back on the field as head coach of the Colorado State Rams. The USC quarterback situation, according to Clay Helton, will be decided after this weekend's practices and scrimmage. And Wisconsin's two top wide receivers have been suspended, Quintez Cephas and Danny Davis. All right, folks, it's been an interesting night here at Mark Rogers TV. I appreciate you guys hanging with me when we have this type of situation, and it's a bit helter-skelter, and I'm trying to listen but also stay on the line and discuss the situation. Then we had the Central Florida conversation set up as well, right in the middle. So my apologies go out to Jeff Sharon of Black and Gold Banner, SB Nation platform for UCF, and his patience in allowing me to update everyone on the decision involving Urban Meyer, and then at the same time cutting our conversation short so we could get to the news at hand. Yes, and Noah Fant is the best tight end in college football, or one of them. All right, everyone, we will be back very soon, maybe tonight for another live stream. I don't know what to tell you there. It is 9:45 at night. And as well, we appreciate it, Navy Thomas 8. Also, Gables Kane, thanks for the support. Check out the ACC video predictions. We've got Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina State coming up, and I am so far behind. I have got to start recording some more of those. So I will make myself through the get myself through the ACC Coastal Division, I believe, tonight, and hear what the boys at ESPN have to say about the Urban Meyer case as I do that. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, voice of college football. Thank you so much. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you either later tonight, but most likely we will see you on Thursday night, tomorrow night, more live college football talk right here.